Hey, my friends, I'm Matt. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour podcast, and I like to play basketball. I've liked to play basketball for a long time. I was horrible at it as a kid, but I could see why people would be into it, and so I put a lot of energy into trying to understand the game better, and I would like to think that I improved, and I've played a bunch of organized ball and unorganized ball, and one of the things that happens when you play a lot with your friends is you get to know their strengths and weaknesses. You figure out what they do on the court, and you learn that when it's time to win, like this guy's going to do that, this girl's going to do this thing. And I was playing one time up at the YMCA with some people I didn't know, and I was playing with a dude who can just take over a game, and he wasn't doing it. He wasn't doing the thing that he does well. And so we had this little aside for a moment, and in this brief sidebar, I was like, dude, why aren't you doing the thing? Just dominate. I know what you have in your arsenal, and it's really effective, and you're obviously choosing not to use it, and I don't get that. And I remember my buddy was like, I don't know these guys we're playing with very well, but that kid right there, he needs a win, and he can't feel like he got it cheap, so we're going to play hard, but I'm not going to do that thing. And I was like, oh, okay. And the point was that, yeah, of course he could do this other thing, but he had another set of motives that weren't immediately evident to me, and I had to ask him what the deal was in order to get on the same page with him in terms of why he wasn't pulling the trigger on the awesome stuff I knew that he could do. Likewise, in Matthew chapter 13, Jesus' disciples are looking at Jesus, who is speaking in parables to this group of people who've gathered around him, and I'm like, what are you doing? We have seen you accomplish things with language and rhetoric that no one has ever accomplished before. You are the absolute all-time master of knowing what to say in the moment, of turning a phrase, of always being equipped, of leaving people disarmed and aware of their own wrongness. You're a verbal genius. And now you're speaking in parables. Why are you pulling punches? And I think that is the question they're politely asking Jesus after he gets out into this boat and is teaching the crowds, and he teaches with stories instead of going right through the front door with theological rhetoric like he was doing before. So in Matthew 13, verse 10, the disciples came to him and asked, why do you speak to the people in parables? Like, why? Just be awesome. Do the thing that you do again, and everybody will be impressed. I mean, it worked on us. Look, we're here following you all over the place. I mean, we had jobs and families and stuff, but your speech was so powerful. You teach with such authority, not like all the other people. You should just keep doing what you're doing because you're really, really effective at it. But in the same way, my buddy on the basketball court was not doing all of the awesome things he could do on the court, but instead employing different techniques for some other motive that I didn't understand. So Jesus reveals that he's doing the same thing here. Verse 11 of Matthew 13, he said, "The knowledge of the secrets of the kingdom of heaven have been given to you, but not to them. Whoever has will be given more, and he'll have an abundance. Whoever doesn't have, even what he has will be taken from him." Let's break down this somewhat troubling first half of his answer. The knowledge of the secrets of the kingdom of heaven have been given to you. Okay, well, I don't think we have any problem with that, right? Whatever conception you have of God, whether it's a Bible-ish conception of God or some other conception of God, I mean, it seems like it would be fully within the ethical purview of a God to be like, and behold, henceforth you shall be gifted with the knowledge of the things of God. And it's like, wow, it's amazing. That's great. Now I know a bunch of things I didn't know before. I understand things about God and the kingdom of God. That's awesome. But the second half of that sentence is a little more troubling because he says, the knowledge of the secrets of the kingdom of heaven have been given to you, but not to them. Ooh. And for you and I, this is not the first time that Jesus' words have forced us to wrestle with the fairness of such a proposition. Is it ethical of God to say you get to know these truths that are absolutely life-giving and vital, and you over here, you just don't? Well, the argument we've explored to say no, that's not ethical would be God needs to be fair. And it's not fair. Like if everybody has problems and everybody has sin and everybody falls short of the glory and standards of God, then everybody is equal in their failure. And the fair thing to do would be to reveal the same thing to everybody equally so that everybody sees it and gets it. And this might be one of the theological occasions that causes people to break out the old, well, I could never worship a God who does that thing, or the I could never believe in a God who works that way. And the reason I understand that you might find it troubling is because on some visceral level, I find it troubling even though I've spent a ton of time thinking about it, and even though I think there's a perfectly valid theological answer. But again, as we've discussed in earlier conversations, the argument could also be made here that, well, if everybody is sinful and falls short of the glory of God and is broken, then everybody's in really bad shape. And any gesture of grace or opening the eyes of anyone or revealing the secrets of the knowledge of the kingdom of heaven to anyone would be way above and beyond what the God character is obligated to do at all. So I suppose it's just a matter of perspective. What I will say is this: the most troubling parts of the Bible are the parts where God doesn't act like you or I imagine we would act if we were God. And I think I'll just let that comment sit out there for what it is, and we can all make of it whatever we need to. But getting back to the text here, it stays pretty intense moving into the next verse. Again, whoever has will be given more, and he will have an abundance. Whoever does not have, even what he has will be taken from him. So it sounds not fair also. It sounds like God is picking on the downtrodden and propping up the people who are doing great. The rich get richer and the poor get poorer. But that doesn't really square with the notion of justice that we see God articulating and carrying out throughout the rest of the Bible. So what exactly gives here? Well, what I want to do here to begin the process of understanding Jesus' answer to this question, why do you speak in parables instead of just crushing it like you normally do, is to bounce around and do a little triangulation within the book of Matthew itself. So over here in Matthew chapter 11, starting in verse 25, something like that, we get the thing where Jesus speaks to the Father is opening the eyes of some and not the other thing. So let me just read this passage again, because I think Jesus is building off of what he said here in Matthew 11 with his answer to the question of why he teaches in parables in Matthew 13. At that time, Jesus said, "I praise you, Father, Lord of heaven and earth, because you've hidden these things from the wise and learned and revealed them to little children. Yes, Father, for this was your good pleasure." Oh, okay. Well, that sounds a little different than the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. There it sounds more like the rest of the Bible notion of justice, where the really impressive people are the ones who miss it, but the ones who have the heart to believe, the heart of a child, they're the ones who get it. That doesn't totally release the tension, but it adds a little bit of clarity. We jump ahead to Matthew 16, where another theme related to this comes up. Matthew 16, starting in verse 13. When Jesus came to the region of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, "Who do people say the Son of Man is?" They replied, "Some say you're John the Baptist, others say Elijah, and still others Jeremiah or one of the prophets." "But what about you?" he asked. "Who do you say I am?" Simon Peter answered, "You're the Christ, the Son of the living God." Jesus replied, "Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for this was not revealed to you by man, but by my Father in heaven." Okay, so in chapter 13, Peter, who's kind of the spokesperson of the disciples, and anytime there's a question about how Jesus is handling his business, it's usually coming from Peter. So I suspect he was the guy who put voice to the question, why do you speak to the people in parables? So then Jesus, in response to that, says the knowledge of the secrets of the kingdom have been given to you. And then over here in 16, like, well, I guess so. They have been given to Peter, and Jesus affirms it again, saying this wasn't revealed to you by man, but by my Father in heaven. So we might be tempted to fixate on the part of Jesus' answer that's like some people aren't going to see this or get this. But in fairness, he did just teach a parable that indicated that 3 out of 4 types of people are not going to get this or see this, even though the seed and the opportunity was put right in front of them. But what I'm trying to say is the upside is on display here as well. It's not just some people didn't get to know this. I mean, it was only one guy. It was only Peter who made this profession of Christ. Not everybody saw it. In fact, well, again, only one person saw it. So it was a pretty exceptional thing that got revealed here, and we really shouldn't be surprised that nobody else caught this. Continuing our triangulation around the Gospel of Matthew to try to make sense of Jesus' answer regarding why he's speaking in parables, Matthew 25:14. I don't have time to read you this whole parable, but this is the one about the talents. This is the one where somebody gets given 5 talents, somebody else gets given 2, another one gets given 1. I've heard that a talent is $1,000, $2,000, something like that. So it's a ton of money that each of these people have been given. And then, of course, they all go and invest it. The one with 5 gets a return equal to that amount. That's awesome. Gives it back to the master. The master is pumped about that. The one with 2, he didn't have as much to start with, but he comes back with a return of 2 on the 2. And the master's like, that's awesome. I'm pumped about that. But the one with 1 is like, you're pretty shrewd. And I didn't want to take the chance of messing up the 1 talent you gave me. So I just buried it and it's kind of dirty and stuff. But here you go. I'm giving it back. And the master said, well done, good and faithful servant to the first 2. Even though 1 produced a return of 5 and 1 produced a return of 2, the master seems to get, I know what you were given to invest in the first place. But the one who only had 1 is like, what are you doing? And the master says to the one who buried the investment, he says, you wicked, lazy servant. And he says some other stuff, and he gives this instruction. Take the talent from him, the one who wasted it, and give it to the one who has the 10 talents. For everyone who has will be given more, and he will have an abundance. Whoever does not have, even what he has will be taken from him. So what is it exactly that the third servant got wrong? He misunderstood the character of the master, and he was lazy and slothful, and he just didn't get the significance of what had been put in front of him. And all of that indicates that the master is fully justified in condemning the behavior of that third servant, and the master never has it even occur to him to be like, well, you were dealt a worse hand, or you weren't given quite as much, so I couldn't really expect much of you. You are simpler and naiver and dumber. And I'm going to have a very different set of standards. No. There's none of that. Truth was put in front of all 3. Opportunities were put in front of all 3. 2 got it right, and 1 ultimately got it wrong. The themes around Matthew chapters 10, 11, 12, 13 are the sorting out of the people who see it and get it and the people who don't see it and don't get it. And so it would be easy for us as we talk about this to just focus on the minds and the mentality and the decision-making process, the evaluation process of the people who embrace Jesus and reject Jesus in these chapters. But we cannot get around the reality that the text and Jesus himself are clearly teaching that ultimately, if somebody sees it, that is from God. Is this comfortable? Is this convenient? Does this fit neatly with our modern notions of fairness and equity? Nope, not at all. But it's an upside-down kingdom, and things work differently there, and Jesus disclosed that from the beginning. So why is Jesus speaking in parables instead of going strong to the whole with the communication techniques he's had so much success with in the past? Well, apparently it's somehow related to God's revealing or hiding process that he does in the hearts and minds of people. That is supposed to be a challenging concept, and it will only get more challenging-er tomorrow when we work further through Jesus' answer to the question, why are you speaking to the people in parables? If you're unsettled, cool. That can be a good place to be from time to time. I am too, and we'll leave it there for the moment. I'm Matt. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour podcast. Let's do this again soon.